Hello and welcome to the Chess Pit, the podcast where three guys talk about chess occasionally. As you may have noticed, we aren't three today. We are two. John McKenzie is with his family. Happy Boxing Day, Robin. How have you been enjoying your Christmas?
It's been pretty muted here at the Sarfass residence. And by the Sarfass residence, I mean the house I share with a number of my housemates. I have COVID at the moment, so
Poor Robin.
so-
How are you feeling, mate?
which you've outed me for now. So thanks, Phil.
Well, you didn't have to volunteer that information. You could have.
Well, you want me to lie to the listeners and tell them I had a great
Yes.
Christmas?
Yes.
You know how my Christmas was, Phil.
But how are you otherwise? Are you enjoying today's action?
Yeah, I have tuned into a bit of it. To be honest, I spent a lot of the last couple of days. Well, I've been waking up very late the last couple of days because I hadn't slept well at all last week, and so because I had a bit of a fever, and so I've been sort of sleeping in very late to sort of make up a bit of a sleep debt. But yeah, enjoyed some of the chess today and stuff. Feeling a lot more spry and sprightly now.
Excellent. So what this is going to be a roundup of day one from the FIDE World Rapid, which has been happening in Warsaw since 2 p.m. this afternoon. And we've had 5 games already. Let's run through the top standings as they are at the moment in each competition. There's an open event and a women's event. So we have Bada Jobava, Magnus Carlsen, and Jan Krzysztof Duda on 4.5 out of 5 in the open. And in the women's, we have 2 leaders. We've got Gunina and Kostenyuk, both on a maximum score of 4 out of 4. Initial impressions from today's games, please, Robin.
Yeah, I mean, you would obviously with a field with so many players in it, you're always going to get some outliers and stuff. I would say that the but we've obviously seen the kind of arrangement of the standings with sort of quite a lot of the top players who you would expect to be finishing near the top, sort of group themselves around there. I think it's perhaps interesting to pick out individual players and look at their past where they've got to. I mean, take Magnus for example. He kind of he was looking. He got a draw in I think round 2 and stuff, and was in trouble in round 5 against Alexei Shirov for a little bit. Looked like Shirov had just sort of taken a little bit of an initiative, but perhaps used up sort of he spent a lot of time at a critical moment looking for the right move to sort of press his advantage and couldn't find it, and then that sort of worked against him later on. Carlsen managed to consolidate and eventually press forward for and get the win. So he's ended up on 4.5, whereas Duda and Jabava have obviously sort of won their first 4 games or matches, as John would say, and
tournaments. They both won the first 4 tournaments of the event.
The 11 tournament
in the game.
The 11 tournament Swiss game. So then we're playing each other, although not on board 1. I should make there was a bit of a snafu earlier with sort of the fact that Magnus is always on board 1 in this tournament, seemingly.
That's for broadcast reasons, is it not? So there's a static camera broadcasting for Norwegian television, I think. Yeah,
Norwegian television has that. So after there was a bit of a mix-up after round 2 when Carlsen had his draw, the arbiters did all the pairings and stuff as they would naturally, and it directed Carlsen towards board 11. So everyone went and took their places, but then the arbiters were told actually it's supposed to be that Carlsen is supposed to be on board 1 regardless of where he is. And so then they asked all the players in top boards, like, "Oh, you're going to all have to move down a board so that we can get Magnus." And they went to get Magnus, and then I think him thinking that it was going to be a pain to move everyone, he was like, "Why don't we just leave it and we'll do it next time?" But we're just not, let's not do it. But I think that which I think in theory seemed to be like a sort of noble thing to do, because he's like, "No, don't make everyone, I don't want to just make everyone move so I can go up to board 1 for whatever." But I think they had already all agreed to move down a board anyway. So I feel like if anything, Magnus has actually made himself look to be a bit of a dick by doing that. I don't know. I wasn't obviously there on, but anyway, so there was you can't see these days. You can't have a FIDE tournament without like Vacancy had all this board stuff, which Alireza Firouzja is like now banned himself from Vacancy basically for this stuff. The arbiters you do feel like they need to get better at not messing stuff up all the time. Chess people in the chess world, I don't know.
Yeah. So what we should just to expand on that, what happened in the 2020 Vacancy is that they were setting up the board for the tie breaks, I think, or a playoff or something, or setting up for the. There was like a playoff, wasn't there? And Firouzja was still playing. Firouzja still thought he could win to get into the playoff that they were going to have. He couldn't, and it was all a bit of a kerfuffle. And Firouzja has asked for an apology, not got one, and is pulled out of this January's vacant.
He did eventually get an apology, but he's asked for like some sort of like monetary compensation, I think, which they are not willing to
play. This FIDE World Rapid, I think I saw it in the tournament conditions that there is actually a mandatory round of musical chairs. So it's actually the arbiters are messed up here by not enforcing it, by the looks of it.
The arguments among the top player, Hikaru Nagamura, is a big Imagine Dragons fan, and so was insisting it be Imagine Dragons, but then Bada Jabava was demanding it was got to be Jew Black Emperor. So
it's one of these where the arbitering team just haven't been told exactly what's going on, and the players are making up their own rules. But back to the tournament itself. So we have Jabava, Carlsen, and Duda on 4.5. Did you see the round 5 game between Duda and Jabava? It was
very exciting, wasn't it?
Topsy-turvy as you could get.
Duda went from completely winning to dead lost to it being a draw in the space of like what felt like 8 seconds. Just this incredible queen takes d7.
Queen takes c7, taking advantage of a double pin. There's a queen and king on Jabava's e-file. Queen takes c7 check. Looks like it'd be taken by the bishop, but then it'd be answered by rook takes e6 check.
And then at the end, after king takes rook, we've broken the pin, which meant that Duda could pick up the rook.
There were about 4 pins in the position. It was incredible.
But pinning each, like pin pieces simultaneously, pinning and pinned.
It's like a Venn diagram of pins.
That was a very, very exciting game. Draw, probably a fair result, I guess. I don't know. Duda will be, I guess, kicking himself, right? He had a big advantage throughout the game, but you play someone like Jabava. Jabava is obviously one of those players who is despite being in the 2500s at this point, obviously the top players are like he's not a favourable draw for them.
He's just complete wildcard madness. We've talked about him. We talked about him in our preview episode as just someone who's had not the best time of it in classical lately, but in the faster time controls, he can get away with his style of play, and that's what we saw.
His like weird janky opening repertoire.
Yeah, I mean, he played. I think it was his round 3 and 4 game. He had a significant minus, and still came out winning. So this is the kind of thing that we're going to get in this event. We're going to get big players coming up against each other and trying stuff in a way that just doesn't work in the slower time limits. So but Carlsen himself hasn't done that. Carlsen himself has basically played like Carlsen. He's just gone for very small edges and hoping to get through them. So round 1, he won in 104 moves in a completely drawn ending against whoever it was. Poor sod from was it Georgia? I can't remember who he played. Let's find it. He played Gagunashvili, and Gagunashvili played very, very well and had this completely drawn rook and bishop against rook. So Carlsen had the rook and bishop, of course, and just fell into one of the many pitfalls. But the pitfall he fell into was extraordinary. Did you see it? It was It was remarkable.
Basically, he just allowed a discovered checks to basically losing the rook for the bishop. I think what I imagine that, right? He's played 100 moves to get to this endgame, which he knows is actually like technically drawn against Magnus, and he's like probably just in that moment sort of breathed basically, and then that's the moment where he's just blundered, right? He must be absolutely devastated. That's obviously his moment, right? Round 1, playing on board 1 against Magnus, right?
Black as well.
Yeah.
He played really well.
He played Magnus's lines from the World Championship match as well. These Rook B8 Marshall lines,
Knight A5 stuff,
and and stuff. So he's prepared to do that, and he's come into this, and it's really exciting. He's got, a draw for him is obviously like a, would be, I guess, sort of prominence wise, the biggest result of his career, I would guess.
Absolutely.
And so he must be devastated. But that's, you've got to. That's what separates the elite.
Yeah, it's been a fun day one, has it not?
The stuff on the board has been very fun. It's been annoying to see. Obviously, there have been technical issues and stuff early on and stuff. I was trying to watch round one when the Chess 24 coverage, they just lost the feed basically from what was going on the boards and stuff, and that's partly the reason why I haven't watched as much. I was watching in round one, and I picked it up later, round 4 and 5, but just because that happened, I kind of got sidetracked and started doing other things.
I've been there all day, unfortunately. It has been good. Let's talk a bit about the chasing pack. So behind those three, we have a group of 11 players. We have Mr. Nepomniachtchi, who is going to be playing Duda with White immediately tomorrow afternoon. We have then Anton, Giri, Grishchuk, Chaparinov, Petrosian, who I mentioned as well, a dark horse for the Blitz, but not for the Rapid, but he's doing very well with 4 out of 5. Fedosiev, Abu Satyarov, who beat Caruana, and he's only 17 years old. So this kid is one to look out for. He's been one to look out for a long time. Nordia, Beck, Abdul Satyarov. Yeah, he's 2593 rated, 17-year-old Uzbekistani grandmaster, and he smashed up Caruana early on. We then have Korobov, Firouzja. He's doing absolutely fine. He's drawn a couple, but he's on 4. Gareyev, Gelfand, blast from the past, and Hans Mokin Niemann, the American grandmaster with the big hair. They are all on 4. But yeah, there's nobody really is out of it unless you're, say, I don't know, below 50% maybe. And that includes two of our 3 dark horse picks as well for the Rapid. I picked Karyakin, who's really struggling with 2. And likewise, one of your picks was Mr.
Artemiev.
Yeah, Mr. Artemiev. He's also on 2. However, Jordan Van Forest, or Chris Russell, as we know him better, is on 3.5. He's doing pretty well. So he's got Shirov tomorrow. But out of those chasing pack, any surprises? Any kind of, this is what we expect? I mean, Nak is on 3.5. He's doing absolutely fine.
Yeah, we said
draws as well.
Yeah, I think we said that with Nakamura, we didn't. I predicted Nakamura that wouldn't do great in the Rapids. I guess probably it's worth clarifying that I don't expect him. Wouldn't expect him to be getting less than half or something like that. Like, I'm sure he'll perform well, but just going into it, obviously, as the second rated player, second seed, I don't think that he'll compete to actually win it. So I could very easily see him. What how many rounds is it? It's like 13?
13. There's 8 more games.
Yeah, you could very easily see sort of Nakamura finish on something like 9.5 or something.
Well, that would be top. That would be top 3 or 4 for sure.
Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 9.5. Yeah, winning score before.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe 8 is probably the sort of range I'm looking for. So you could see him coming in sort of that area and just sort of like being competitive, but not really challenging. Of the chasing back, I mean, it's hard not to say that Firouzja, just half a point behind, is well placed. Caruana is on 3.5, but could be on 2.5.
Yeah.
So he's had a couple of really bad positions today. One of which I think he lost, but one of which he actually managed to turn around and win.
And then he drew another one in round 5. Yeah. He was really, really struggling against. Who was he playing? He was playing against Gareyev. Yeah, and he was absolutely under the cosh. He managed to somehow hold that.
Yeah, and Anish quietly on 4 out of 5. He's typically very good in the Rapids. So I think we're it's nicely poised.
And what did you think of the coverage in general? With were you watching the Leko and Ganguly?
Yeah, I really
Leko's
like
great,
that.
isn't he?
I really like Leko. Ganguly, I think, is very well. I think that the 2 of them, when they could actually get the feed and stuff, it was the 2 of them together, were excellent. To be honest, I think Leko brings a very he has a very nice feel for when the for when he should be sort of more excitable about the games and things, and does really bring it to life, I think. So yeah, I enjoy him a lot. I missed him a bit in the World Championships, to be honest.
Yeah, he was talking about how he'd been sort of using some of these lines in the prep when he'd been doing things for the World Championship. So it was, he's just got a very, very a very good speaking voice for chess. It's this kind of level of chess as well, where he's not having to be complete. He's not having to be like what's his name, Pepe Cuenca on Chess 24, where like horse racing commentary. But he can equally. He's got a clipped enough voice that he can break through those moments where, he does need to have a go. Yeah,
I would say that to be honest, I don't know. I would say his voice is actually just his general speak voice, probably like a bit higher pitched than you would want. It can be a bit kind of grating, I think. But I to be honest, I kind of look past that. I think the quality of his commentary is fantastic. He's always super insightful. Like hearing him talk about his chess career and stuff is always really, really interesting. He also just comes across as a really genuinely nice guy, which he's an easy person to root for as well. So love Lecco.
He could easily still compete, right? He could definitely be thereabouts. I mean, he's clearly one of the best chess minds going still.
I'm sure he'd be 2700 plus, like if he was still playing, right? Like he was generated, like he's younger than people like Vichy and
he's only 42. He's 10 years younger than Vichy.
There we go. So and he played a World Championship match 15 years ago. So
maybe he burnt out too soon with the
well, he was a real prodigy, wasn't he? He was very young.
He was the youngest grandmaster at one point. I think it went Polgar, then Lecco, and then back row, something like that for the youngest grandmaster title. Okay, so going into day 2, we've got these 3 leaders, and we'll see what happens. We've got 4 games tomorrow. Any sign do you think of Carlsen? We've seen that he should have drawn round 1. He did draw round 2, and he probably got away with a couple of things as well. Mm-hmm. But as you said, he's come back to sort of just get things done. Any chance of him losing tomorrow?
Yeah, I certainly think there's a chance, right? I mean, bearing in mind that you look at obviously the longer that the tournament goes on, right, the more you're going to see the standings reflect kind of the seat, like the pairings reflecting the strength of the players, and so you would expect to see, if Carlsen plays the way he did today but he's playing suddenly most of his opponents are 2700 plus, some 2750 pluses thrown in there, then you could see things going very different. Like I can't imagine that, if he plays Anish Giri, right, Anish is not going to blunder in a completely technically drawn endgame, like stuff like that. And Magnus certainly has this effect on, especially I think those who aren't used to playing him that regularly. I don't think, he doesn't have that same intimidation factor. Not that he doesn't have any intimidation factor, but if he plays up, Fabi, Grishuk, etc. So, it won't be played. I mean, clearly you'd expect him he's not going to win every round, right? Like you said, 9.5 could well be a winning score, right? So there's going to have to be everyone's going to drop points somewhere. It's a question of will he drop more than the others? I don't know. Duda was my pick beforehand, and he seems in very good nick. I think he's obviously very good in quick time controls. He's an improving player generally. He's about to play in the candidates. You can see him. So I still I'm obviously happy with my pick. In general, our preview episode was quite prescient. I thought just a lot of the names that were mentioned have come up for better or for worse, right? Like Bader Jabava, John's incredible answer as being the sort of best disparity in rating between his between his classical and his rapid or whatever was or his blitz even. So he was firmly mentioned.
So we will be back tomorrow evening to round up day 2. Thank you as always to our sponsor Playfair Capital. Playfair Capital is one of London's leading venture capital funds, and it's incumbent on me to talk to Robin and say thank you.
Thank you.
And talk to you and say thank you as well. And goodbye.